Film, the ultimate discussion. These are the reviews of the Talking Pictures. Our mission, to review and discuss the 3 modern Star Trek films. And to boldly discuss that no one has reviewed before. Hello and welcome to Talking Picture. I'm Andrew Perkin.
I'm Benjamin Melchip.
And on today's episode, we're reviewing Star Trek 2009. I kind of picked this film because obviously I'm a big Star Trek fan, as you know.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. I was originally going to do the 3 original films, but I thought, why not do the new films? That's what people are interested in. So we're going to discuss about what the film is, how good the acting was, how good the visuals, and generally kind of give our discussion about it, our opinions as well. It's kind of, you can consider this a review, but I wouldn't say it's a review. It's more just to kind of talk about it, make people interested. So, Ben, you've never seen the film before.
No, all I've seen of Star Trek is the New Discovery series and the original series.
To be fair, the original series is the best place to start, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very fun to watch.
So, going quickly, what did you think straight away watching it?
When I first got watching it, I was kind of tentative about it because, it's a modern reboot with J.J. Abrams, with Mr. Lens Flare himself,
and after what he did with Force Awakens, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, looking back, it's still kind of better than The Last Jedi, but let's stay off the topic.
Let's stay off that Star Wars topic.
Yeah, especially we don't want any of your collective coming down on us.
But yeah, what was your initial thoughts about spoiling the film? What was your initial thoughts looking at it straight away, watching it?
Like, heading into it, as I said, a bit tentative, but it's slowly growing me. I could definitely see why people would have problems with it. It's got a very modernised feel, and it's got like a lot of kind of more modern music shoved in, which I can imagine gets on a lot of people's wick, and I could see people being slightly miffed about Kirk.
Star Trek fans are a very angry bunch.
They're a very fickle bunch, all fan bases.
That's all fan bases go. But did you enjoy it? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised?
I did really enjoy it, to be honest. Like, I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. Like, I enjoyed it all the way through. It was a very, very fun film.
So, discussing the film, I got to say, visually, very impressive. Like, this film was 9 years now, 9 years old. It was 2009 it came out. So, it still holds up pretty well, in my opinion, that is.
Yeah, it's the blockbuster look, isn't it, I think, for me. It just feels like I'm watching something like 2012 when you look at the special effects.
It did come out at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, it's just typical blockbuster stuff, so I wasn't that surprised with the visual effects.
I think, in my opinion, because Paramount were just going for the Star Wars crowd, because there wasn't a Star Wars film for like 3 years at this point.
Yeah, it was a lot more action.
And Paramount... But let's go into the film. The film starts off with the USS Calvin, so Kirk's dad's ship, and he's played by the guy who played for... Forgot his name. It's Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth, that's it.
He played, and surprisingly, because how big Chris Hemsworth is now, it's kind of surprising him such a small. He was kind of young though at this point.
Yeah, he looks really young, but maybe it's just not having a beard. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it starts off with his father.
And Captain Pike, wasn't it? At the
Captain, at the start of the film, it was which age? It
was,
it was the Romulan.
A different Captain.
It was
Captain
the big
Pike came after. Yeah.
So it attacks his father's ship, and instantly, I kind of have a fault with the film as a Star Trek fan. This is meant to be in the Prime timeline. There's 2 timelines. There's the new Calvin timeline, which is kind of an alternative timeline, which is because of this film. And then there's the Prime timeline, which is the original series, all the other shows. And so in technical terms, he's entering the Prime timeline to change it.
Yeah, it's a new
Yet,
creation of a timeline.
somehow the Calvin looks very different to Teal. I guess in a way you can technically say Discovery looks different. So I think at this point no one really cares.
I mean, the fans care, but the fans, they'll over-evaluate everything. It's understandable. The fans.
To be fair, I
it's
do appreciate the
important to
details.
legacy.
I appreciate the details on the Calvin. There's buttons, there's the uniforms. It looks quite similar to like an older TOS uniforms. But yeah, it starts off with that. And the Calvin gets destroyed, and we're kind of introduced to the beginnings of Neo, I think it's called Neo. He's the villain.
Yeah.
He's the Romulan villain. His motivations are
He was
explained later.
Yeah, we will go into that a bit later, along with the timeline split.
So, right off the back, Kirk is growing up without a father. That's kind of the basis of the film. This is a different Kirk. This is not your mother and your dad's Kirk. This is the new Kirk.
Yes, this isn't lady. Well, he's still kind of a ladies' man, but not as chivalrous.
He's more of a modern ladies' man, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he's a bit more aggressive and
well,
pump.
he's played by Chris Pine, and I think he does a good job. I think he looks like Shatner went in his 20s, because Shatner in the TOS looked like he was still in his like late 30s. So he looks like a 20-year-old Shatner, to a point, I would say. I think he does a great job, but it's obvious they're playing him in a different direction. They're playing him more as the angsty kid,
It's like more of a roguish type, isn't
rogue,
it?
yeah. I mean, Kirk was always by the books. He's a ladies' man, but he was always by the book.
Yeah.
This Kirk's more of a brash,
Forceful fella,
Yeah, he's obviously grown up without a father. The film starts with him as a kid riding in like an old car, and that's an element I find issue with the film, is the fact that they keep showing Kirk as this kind of obsession with classic,
because
he has
had
that
him
bike.
on the bike earlier on, he had a classic.
It's relation to the original series and the other films where Kirk. But the thing is, in them, Kirk wasn't really into 20th century. He was more into classical naval. So they kind of shifted it a little bit to where he's an angsty kid who likes old stuff, like the motorbikes.
Yeah, like the stuff that gets people
Loud
nostalgic
music.
nowadays.
I think that is the thing they were going for. Maybe, I think in a way it was I think it was J.J. Abrams' own nostalgia kind of put in there, maybe in a way.
Quite likely.
Quite likely. But overall, I do like the start of the film. It kind of gets you in there. It shows that this is a new Trek. This is not, as I said, your dad's Trek. This is for the not kids, the new teenage audience.
It's to introduce a new generation that might not be
Trek, so.
as able to adjust as much to the older kind of style.
Yeah, so the film then goes to kind of Spock's childhood, him getting bullied. That actually relates to the animated series. I haven't seen the animated series, but Spock was actually bullied. You actually kind of borrowed elements from there. So JJ does know his Trek. Like, he knows him and the guy who played Scotty.
Yeah.
He was Shaun of the Dead. I forgot.
Yeah, it's Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg, because I think he helped produce this. Or
yeah, cause
he's
he's a very
team.
big fan. I know this. I've seen his Twitter. He likes to post about it a lot.
Yes, so those two obviously know what they're doing with Trek. So you can tell there's a lot of Spock's rough upbringing, him getting bullied, but there's kind of an issue at the same time, because they're saying this is still part of the Prime timeline. Yet he's a very, very emotional kid. Which, yeah, I guess Star Trek did kind of explain that he was an emotional kid, but they always. The whole point of the film is it's meant to be Spock is more emotional, more human in this movie, whilst in the old series he was more Vulcan. And my issue is, even at a young age where he should be in the Prime timeline, he's still emotional. I guess if you count TAS as canon, the original animated series, then he was an angsty, angry kid. Which I guess they kind of both have a relation. Spock has parents who love him, but he finds it hard being around people, whilst Kirk never had a father.
Yeah, he isn't much for to a degree he's similar to Kirk in the fact that he's kind of rebelled against the typical Vulcan system, because he declines going into
he goes to the Federation, which is deemed an emotional decision when
he's accepted. He could have gone into the Vulcan Academy, but then he you know, we basically right there at the meeting because of one little comment decided to go to.
As a Star Trek fan, it was actually pretty
Starfleet.
great to see that scene because that's the scene I needed because it was always explained that Spock turned down the Vulcan Academy, which was shown in Discovery. You know,
Yes.
that he
Which actually, with Discovery, they reflected, like they kind of did with her character. I forgot her name.
Michael Byrne.
Michael Burnham's character. She was also bullied in the
Yeah,
Vulcan Academy.
because it's just kind of I think Discovery's kind of continuing what the Calvin had the foundations for, but Discovery is here or there. It's not a part of this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was great to see Spock argue with his father. This was famous throughout TOS, the original series, that Spock and his father had a rival, a grudge. Not a rivalry, but a grudge.
Yeah, they didn't have the best relationship.
No, they have a very bad relationship. But for some reason in this film, he has a very close relationship with his father, which I find...
Well, it's
But
kind
that
of
does-
revealed later on that he has kind of a close relationship.
But
At
that-
first,
that
he's a bit
contin-
standoffish, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's because of a certain thing we'll talk about later on. So Kirk, at this point, he's in a bar, he's drinking, he's getting into kind of a fist fight, which is very relates back to the original series again.
He's
fist
flirting
fighting.
with one of the characters from...
Uhura.
Yeah, Uhura.
Uhura.
I was going to try to keep a name
People in the
secret.
comments are going to be like, it's Uhura. I can't even say it. It's
It's
difficult
alright,
to say.
I'm fairly certain I'll get quite a bit wrong.
You're going to get a lot of
this.
names wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Uhura is, so he's trying to flirt with Uhura, which is kind of weird because I never saw Kirk as interested in Uhura. Like there's such a strong friendship between the two. But then again, this is meant to be more of the Academy years.
Yeah.
So this fist fight, he meets Pike, and Pike tells him, your father was a great officer. I want you to do better. I want you to be a captain. So Kirk takes on that challenge. He goes, there's a beautiful shot of the Enterprise being built, and he looks upon it, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to be your captain. I'm going to be what my father could have been. So that's what happens. He goes into the academy. He meets Bones, he meets Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, and Dr. McCoy is one of my favourite parts of the film,
Oh,
along
yeah.
with Scotty, honestly. Like,
To
they're
be fair,
kind of
it's
my
the two side
favourites.
characters, yeah.
Yeah, admittedly, they were my favourites in the original series as well.
It's really strange because nothing against Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine. Zachary Quinto played Spock. I don't think they don't look and sound the part as much as they did with McCoy and Scotty. Like the actor who plays Bones is spot on.
Yeah, and it gets down, like it's got a lot of the wit that Bones had.
Yeah, I mean, and so it kind of goes into the academy. And here's another kind of fault I have with the film. I actually like the film, but this is a fault. They should have shown his academy years more. They just kind of skip 3 years later, and he's studying for the famous Kobayashi Maru test.
Yeah.
And that is one thing I really do love. They actually show him cheat. It's always been famous that Kirk cheated the Kobayashi Maru test because he cheats death. It's a famous thing that they discuss
because
in the
it's
movies.
supposed to be about basically accepting death and accepting defeat, isn't it, to a degree?
But Kirk always failed that. He doesn't accept no-win scenarios. And that's a famous thing that he says, and it kind of relates to William Shatner when he said it. He says, I don't believe in no-win scenarios, and I did really like that. It's like, it's obvious that JJ knows Star Trek. I get the feeling if JJ had his way, he would have made it more original looking. He probably would have actually stuck to Prime, but I get the feeling Paramount were very adamant to make this an action film, so he kind of had to write an alternative universe.
Yeah, to kind of split it off.
I feel that Paramount were very much, you have to have Spock, Kirk, and all this. You have to have that. And in a way, I feel like he's kind of like, I have to, I'm stuck. I'm stuck between, I have to make, so he made the new universe. And it's kind of interesting because you see the Kobayashi Maru test, and he's actually got original kind of series-looking ship, and he's got some original-looking Klingon ships. And it was kind of interesting because the later films changed the Klingon look in Into Darkness, which we will discuss later on in a different episode. So that's kind of weird visual. Like, I think he can stick as much of the original visuals as he could. And you can also hear some original sound effects. Someone presses a button, so he's kind of get those hints in there for the older fans. But I think he's kind of stuck, restrained.
Yeah, he's kind of restricted away from that a lot.
You definitely see in the academy years, and in a way, Starfleet's kind of treated more as a military in this movie. Like the academy uniforms are very naval looking, and they're very different to the actual uniforms they do wear. And they talk about stuff as Armada. I'm not sure because it goes into the fact that Kirk cheated,
We didn't really see any of his actual education there. We just kind of saw.
Yeah, it's always said throughout this film and in the past that he's a bright student, you know, he's smart. He's not Spock smart, but he's always smart, which was actually a request of William Shatner, that he wanted to be smart, because in the original series he was meant to be dumb, right? Not dumb, but it was always going to be Spock who would correct everything, but it was later, you know, William Shatner said, no, you know, Kirk's got to be smart too, because obviously he didn't want Nimoy to get all the light.
And it also doesn't really make sense for the captain to get promoted and yet be a complete dumbass.
So yeah, but it kind of builds up kind of Spock and Kirk's kind of rivalry in this film, because obviously Kirk cheated Spock's test.
Yeah, which could cause Spock to be quite furious.
Well, not furious, he's more...
Well, it's display, like, there's definitely a furious there. It's just
anger, yes.
He just can't really show it.
He can't show it, obviously, because he's Vulcan.
Yeah.
And so the two kind of argue in the court scene, and then it's explained that there's a Romulan attack on Vulcan. It's very interesting, because it's explained that he wants to get revenge on Spock, which I'll explain later. So Pike takes the crew. Actually, before I say that, there's actually a lot of humour, because there's a scene when Bones gets Kirk on the ship with gaining that nasal infection.
Yeah, he just keeps injecting him with like different antidotes for all these things.
Because there's original Star Trek is always about there's a problem and the crew have to work together to solve it, and there's always one person who knows what to do, and that's Bones. He's like, oh, I'll give you this disease, you know, this vaccine for a disease, and it'll make you seem like you got the symptoms. We're gonna use the rules against them, which I absolutely loved. It was like, that's Star Trek. And so he's on the ship, he's kind of bloated up with these big hands, and I didn't like that humour as much, because I had the humour of him being up. I thought that was enough, but they kind of went overboard with the whole numb tongue, you know, because he had numb tongue. So he goes home and he's like, you know, he's trying to tell that this Romulan attacker is the same as his father. You know, this is the one that showed up on my birth. And I think the humour was a bit. It's obvious cinema humour, I call it, where you want to get people in the cinema to laugh when you actually watch it at home.
It's to try to force kind of relatability with the characters, isn't it?
It's kind of what Marvel does in a way. It's kind of this forced humour, because humour for humour's sake.
I mean, it works all right in this film because it does allow the characters to bond a little.
Yeah.
And it's not overdone.
And so he goes to the bridge, he tells Pike that this is the same attack that happened on my father. And Pike's like, how do you know? You know, I was born and I read your report. So they go there, and there's this big cluster of destroyed ships, and they see Nero. They see his ship, and it's like, it's very visually impressive. Like, the visual effects, again, outstanding. I watched it on the 4K Blu-ray, and it was like, wow. And it's explained that there's a big drill, and they're drilling into the planet. And we don't know why, we don't know what they're using, but I will explain, because we do have a bit, that's be a bit kind of a spoiler at the moment. So, Pike is then asked to come aboard the ship, like, asked to come aboard a ship.
Yeah, like the original captain at the beginning.
Of the Calvin, yeah, he was asked to come aboard the ship as well.
Who was simply murdered.
Yes. So Pike knows that this is a trap, obviously. They all know it's a trap. And I like how Kirk and Spock kind of have a hint, because they're both telling Pike this is a trap, don't get aboard. Like, and it's kind of them agreeing with each other.
Yeah, like there's certain points where,
hint
like, well, Spock will like hear Kirk what he says, and it's clear that he kind of doesn't want to agree with him, but he's like, yeah, logically makes sense.
It makes sense. So then there's this visually impressive shot where they're parachuting down onto the drill. I think that's the one thing this movie's kind of famous for, was that shot, because it was a very elaborate CGI action shot. Whenever you see promotional imagery for the film, it's that damn parachuting onto the drill. So that's very impressive, and I do like the fact that they relate to Sulu as a fencer. He goes, "Oh, what experience combat do you have?" Fencing. Yeah. And I thought that was very funny. I mean, it was a good joke, because it was so subtle. But I don't like how they give him a samurai sword.
Yeah, he takes out his little fold-up samurai sword.
Because George Takei always said, when in the original series they were going to give him a samurai, and George Takei said, well, I played Robin Hood as a kid, not samurai. So that's why they gave him a fencing sword. But then again, you couldn't have him with a little fencing sword fighting Romulans.
Yeah, so. He did use the samurai sword, like a samurai sword, at least once in the original series, with the episode where they're kind of on this planet, which is supposed to be for a vacation.
Oh, and the Mirage, yes. That's actually why I like that episode.
That's the one where Kirk gets bullied as well.
Oh yeah, but by his academy bully. They should have showed that in
Yeah,
this film. The
I was
academy
kind of
bully.
sad that he didn't appear.
They didn't have his academy. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted someone to come up
That-
to
that-
him and be like, Jimmy boy.
Yeah, that is one of the best bits in the original series. Is basically where they have his boy, and he's like an Irish, Jimmy boy, and they fight each other, and their shirts are ripping. They should have had more shirt ripping. That's one thing this film misses.
Yeah.
Is shirt ripping. So yeah, it starts off with Kirk and Kirk, Sulu, and a red shirt who just died. They're on the drill, and they've been asked to destroy the drill. Spock is then put in command of the Enterprise. It's kind of explained that the planet is having seismic events because of the drill, obviously. So Kirk and Sulu are successful. They start shooting the drill, and they manage to destroy it. And one thing I like is Chekhov. Chekhov is very useful in this film. He's obviously they play up his Russian his accent.
Yeah, because they have the little joke where
Wessel,
he can't do the
he can't
the
do
scan.
the ship communication. Yeah, he can't scan his voice.
Yeah.
But no, Chekhov in the original series is a very useful person. I like how they kind of merge, because in the original series, Chekhov was almost as smart as Spock, and he was a jack of all trades. He could do engineering, he could do science, he could do piloting, he could do weapons, and that was great. And in this, that's what he is. But in the original series movies, kind of like he was the funny Russian guy. And if you watch the original movies that you haven't really seen yet, they make him more funny, not actually useful.
Ah, right.
But I like how they kind of merged the two. He's funny and useful in this film. Like, he's still the funny comic relief, but at the same time, he's capable. He's a capable officer. He can do he does the transporting where he gets Kirk and Sulu. It's kind of high octane. They're kind of falling off, and he
he locks
transports
onto them and is able to get them.
A very impressive CGI shot again. So then we go to straight away. Spock goes to the planet to save his parents, and the big thing that changes Spock's character in this movie compared to the Prime is his death of his mother and his people. I think there's only 10,000 Vulcans left apparently. Very bold move to destroy Vulcan.
Yeah, it's a very
in terms of Star Trek,
part.
Vulcans are iconic. If you look at Ben's badge here, that is very iconic.
Oftentimes people will think of Spock and the Vulcans before anything else when it comes to Star Trek.
And they just killed off the planet Vulca.
Yeah.
So, with Spock's parents dead, he's obviously emotionally compromised. Kirk is right. We need to. Spock orders that we need to bring back to the fleet. And because Pike's been captured, and Kirk's saying we need to plan a rescue mission for Pike. He knows all the secret information. We need to take out that ship now. And it's kind of this conflicting. Kirk makes a point. They're on the way to Earth to destroy Earth next. So obviously they need to take it out now. But Spock is logical with the fact that haven't got enough firepower at all. So the two butt heads, and Kirk's marooned onto an ice planet.
Yeah, Spock maroons him.
Maroons him. I actually think I think the ice planet is related to that ice planet in a Star Trek episode where there's a kind of this blood that makes people crazy. They're on an ice planet in that one. I think it might be the same name. I'm not sure. I think that's kind of another hint to us. I'm not sure. And on the planet, we're introduced to one of Ben's favorite characters, Scotty. And I really like Simon Pegg's portrayal. He's like, I've been down here without a square meal for 3 days.
He's just moaning about the rations.
And actually, before that, I kind of
don't
know why I'm glossing over things. Because I
skipped quite a significant part as well.
Listen, with Star Trek, I've got so much information in my head. He actually goes on the planet. He gets chased by some creatures. Very interesting designs of the creatures, though. Not very Star Trek in a way, but I guess that's the whole point. It's got a budget. This isn't a guy in a costume. Imagine Kirk getting chased by that big red creature in the original series. It would have been a guy in a costume.
Yeah, or like a dog.
Or a horse dressed up.
Yeah.
So, sorry, before they meet Scotty, he goes into a cave. He's chased to a cave, and he gets saved by Leonard Nimoy Spock. Old Spock. Super old Spock, maybe, as we call him.
Yeah, Ambassador Spock.
Ambassador Spock. So he gets saved by Spock, and they do the mind meld. Because Spock's like, you're Kirk, you are my friend. I will always and shall be your friend. And Kirk's like,
Wait.
If you were Spock, you hate me. And so they have this whole argument, but then Spock gives him the mind meld, and I really like the mind meld. It does give the explanation. So the story is, there was a supernova with Romulan's son, and Romulus, Spock being an ambassador. And in the original, in TNG, it's explained that Spock's kind of bring friendship between the Romulans. So it was kind of nice that the Vulcans would help the Romulans, so it'd form a red matter kind of distribution. So he goes in the fastest ship, and he's too late to drop the red matter to stop the supernova. So he then has to do it anyway. But Nero returning to try and see what's going on with his planet sees, Spock's too late. They both get sucked into a black hole, and it's
like on opposite sides.
On opposite sides. So it's explained that Nero went in first because his ship's much bigger, and Nero was stuck in this
Like
new alternative universe for
years.
25 years, while Spock came through in seconds. And there's a few red flags I have. Red flag A, if there was a supernova going to happen, don't you think Romulans would have kind of known with this future technology? It's already kind of explained in Star Trek that they know things about issues with the planets.
It feels like there would have already been a contingency plan for this kind of event.
They would have already, if your sun's about to go supernova, you would know. I think
there would
they
already be an
explained it's a seismic
evacuation.
random event. Maybe it's Q, who knows? But they explained that Romulus, but surely Romulans would have known. So that's kind of a red flag. And it was already explained that the sun supernova was kind of, did they say they were stabilizing the sun? Or did they say they were actually going to stop the supernova? So anyway, Romulus was going to be destroyed anyway by the red matter.
Yeah.
So who knows? I don't. Who actually knows? But it was all right. I think it was an all right explanation. But I don't get why Nero is blaming Spock, because it was obvious Spock was trying to help.
Yeah.
Vulcans are actually trying to help, and these are like.
It seemed like it became more of an excuse at the end because he just kind of went on to the whole murder thing. Like he went to Earth next.
Because he's only a minor.
Then he decided to blame the.
Yeah, he blames the Federation. He wants no Federation. He wants a Romulus to grow.
Yeah, even though at first he just blamed Spock.
He just blames. So in a way, I feel like they have to have a big bad guy, but they already explained he's a simple miner. He lost his family. He's just a simple.
He's
dude.
literally in a mining ship.
Yeah, he's a simple guy. He's not a villain. He's not a politician. He's not Khan. He's not any of those. He's just a guy. Yet they make him a villain. It's fine. It's what can you do? It's a movie for normal people. For non-Star Trek fans. It's a movie for your average moviegoer. To them, they don't care about the universe.
It's just chuck someone in with enough of a relatable motive to keep things rolling, isn't it?
So, then again, I like the film, so why am I complaining?
As all films you like, you have criticisms.
So they go on, and it's obviously explained that Kirk and Spock are meant to be friends. So Spock kind of knows that Spock knows that he doesn't know Scotty, but they need to go and get onto the Enterprise. They need a way to get to Spock on the Enterprise, new Spock. So I'm gonna from now on, I think I'm gonna say old Spock and new Spock. I think that's how I'm gonna relate the two characters. So they find their way to a Federation outpost, and Scotty's on there. And as I said, I love Simon Pegg's portrayal. It's explained that Scotty found a way to do cross-planetary interwarp transportation.
Yeah, so he's able to warp onto a moving vessel.
Little red flags here. Apparently they say Scotty hasn't invented it yet. Yeah, it's never explained in TOS or the motion picture or any of that they could do it. And even in TNG. Then again, in TNG they had an episode where old Scotty was still alive because you haven't seen this episode. Basically, God, I'm explaining the whole episode of TNG. It was explained that Scotty in the prime timeline was still alive, basically. So maybe that's why. Maybe JJ's retconning. I don't know. But it's explained that Scotty can do cross interwarp teleportation. So Scotty and Kirk set off, and old Spock says, "I can't meet my older self, your younger self. I can't physically do that. It's not allowed." So he leaves he kind of just abandons old Spock with that guy with the alien, the little alien.
Yeah, the one that's just
you can eat just a bean. Yeah. So they just leave old Spock on his own on a cold planet. To be fair, Spock seems kind of capable for an old man. And they make their way to the Enterprise. And straight away, Spock and Kirk have this fight. Because I think Kirk kind of knows that he's emotionally compromised.
You're skipping a wee bit, because when they first go on, Scotty is trapped in a pipe.
Oh, yeah.
The water pipe, isn't
I didn't think that would be kind of important to talk about, but if you want to talk about that, sure. That was kind of, I think it was a very fun and it was kind of impressive how they did it though. I don't know if it was CGI or they probably mix, obviously. They
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have Simon Pegg in.
I assume they wouldn't like be putting him in a literal water pipe to get
But-
swashed along.
But did you know that scene was shot in a brewery? That the some of this new was actually shot in a brewery.
Ah, right.
A lot of people think it's engineering, but instead it's maybe the water control centre because obviously they didn't have replicators at this point.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So yeah, they have this kind of vibrant scene of Scotty being in the water pipe, and he's kind of going around, and obviously Kirk finds a way to save him, and then they make their way to the bridge, and Spock's like, how did you get here? You know, and Scotty's like, hi, you know, just like, hi, I'm Scotty.
It's like, hello.
Hello. And strangely, instantly, they fight.
Yeah, because he's kind of acting on the advice of old Spock slightly there. Cause
Yeah, to emotionally compromise him.
Yeah.
Scott, yeah. And so he emotionally compromises Spock, and Bones is like, you know, you're emotionally compromised, and Spock kind of believes himself. And it's explained that him and Uhura have a relationship, which was something that surprised me, because it really surprised me they kind of hint to him and having a relationship. It was, I guess, in the original series they did have kind of like, it was always implied and hinted that they had a thing for each other, because actually Spock smiled at her once. So it's always implied that there's a thing, maybe, and I think just JJ's taking it. And for some reason, because Pike's last order was Kirk was the first officer,
he's
something
able
I didn't
to
want to
kind
mention
of
'cause I
rank
wanna bring it
himself
up.
up.
So apparently Kirk is now in charge of the Enterprise. A guy who just passed the academy is now in
Yeah,
charge of
kind of through cheating again.
through cheating, is in charge of the most headship of the Federation. So they begin to form a plan. The plan is they're going to go onto the ship, they're going to save Pike, and then they're going to steal old Spock's ship and use the red matter to destroy it. Spock, after kind of thinking, you know, he's having time to reflect.
Yeah. He
speaking
has
to
like
his
an
father,
emotional moment with his father, where his father admits that he loved
his mother.
his mother.
Spock finally realizes that it's best to help Kirk. You know, I've got to help him. You know, it's do or die. I don't want Earth to end up like Vulcan. So so Kirk and Spock beam their way onto the ship using Scotty's new transportation. And it is a very big action shootout, which is fine, I guess. It's a sci-fi romp after all, and I do like how they're treating the movie more like a sci-fi romp. So they have the shootout and the two. And what did you kind of think that the movie goes for a more action approach? Because obviously you've only seen the original series. How did you?
Did it
surprise you?
It's a lot more actiony. It doesn't have the same combat levels as the original series. Yeah.
2 hands, basically.
Like there was no rocks or anything. I didn't see any Gorns.
No gore. This movie needed a Gorn. Just a guy in a suit, just on the Romulan ship in a Gorn suit.
Yeah, just like a bunch of cages which they just had some random creatures kept in there that interfered with the mining.
And Kirk could have just been like, pfft.
Yeah, so they just like chuck them out to try to distract him for a moment on his way to Pike.
You know what though? I do like the kind of the plan they had. You know, get Spock on, and Spock was going to pilot, because there's kind of a funny line where they do have the ship, and Kirk's like, "Do you know how to drive it?" And Spock says, "Something tells me I already know."
Yeah, because it alerts his voice while he's saying that.
Yes, and I'm like, that's very good. I like that. So Spock gets in the ship, and he's kind of flying out, and Neo's like, "Fire everything at Spock, fire everything at him," and then Enterprise just comes in, firing all phases, and the music's blurting, which I will talk about at the end about the music. What a scene! That would have been great in the cinemas. Like, I can just imagine just that scene of the Enterprise just warping in, firing all its phasers at the missiles. Visually impressive. So Spock's in the ship, and the plan is they're going to spawn a red matter, kind of the same kind of wormhole, and kind of send Nero back. I think they're not going to send him back. I think they're actually going to destroy a ship using it. So that's the plan, to get rid of Nero, obviously, because he's destroying Earth. So Kirk is kind of fighting Nero at this point. He's fighting the Romulans, and manages to save Pike, get off the ship, and actually, in a nice turn of events, Spock releases the red matter and forms kind of this wormhole. And I like how Kirk isn't resentful. In any other action film, the hero would have let the villain die. Kirk does
Yeah.
what the Federation's all about.
Like, of course,
we
Spock
offer you
makes
any
a
assistance?
remark about, oh, like, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so Kirk says, "Can we help? Do you want to be saved in a way?" Because that is the Federation. Kirk is the Federation. I do like that scene. It was a very well done scene. And Nero,
Being stereotypical villain is like, no, you ruined my plan. I'd rather go down and fire.
so he then orders, "All right, fire all phases at Nero."
Yeah, they're just like, yellow now.
So Nero is kind of destroyed, and he's in the wormhole. Visually impressive still. I mean, CGI gets me every time in this film. It's so beautiful, and I watched it in 4K HDR. Stunning. This scene is stunning. So Kirk, Van, they're all relieved, but they actually did it. They did it, and it's kind of interesting because in all the later films, the Enterprise is always kind of destroyed. I like how in this film they actually keep it intact a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll see it later on. Basically, the Enterprise is always in bad shape. In this film, it's in okay shape.
Yeah, it doesn't really get that damaged throughout.
Oh,
which
it
is-
does. It does.
Yeah, I mean, it gets battered, like, with the first shot they get,
Yes.
which, like, ends up taking down, like, I think, isn't it, like, it leaves them with, like, 40% shield?
I don't like how they do shields in this because the shield's meant to be a bubble, and in the original series they never showed the shield. But the whole point of Star Trek is they usually show the shield, but in this, the ship will explode and there'll be a
Yeah.
bit of hull damage. Shield's at 32%.
Yeah, buttons.
No,
will-
you don't
little
have
spark.
shield. There's meant to be a visual effect. It feels very unimpressive. For a very visually impressive film, I would have imagined there would have been some kind of
Yeah.
visuals for shields.
I guess it was more just to have the explosion hit the ship and have
Then
that
again,
bit
we
of
keep forgetting this is a
ruckus.
cinema film. It's a movie made for the cinemas, so
Yeah.
theatres, so they're obviously going to have as much explosions, visual effects
Yeah,
as they
and they
can.
wanted to have some casualties to kind of build tension a bit.
And I do have to say there is a lot of tension. I do feel tense watching that ending scene because it is this Spock's got missiles after him and all this. You obviously know they're going to save the day, but it's still tense. I like
Yeah,
how
there's
they
that
filmed
there's
it.
that moment where there's a chance that he might just get entirely obliterated.
So they've done it. Kirk and his crew have done it. And one thing I noticed is the film really rushes to have his crew in the
Yeah.
positions they are. Instead of all the hard time and effort to get where they are, instead it's you're here by circumstance.
Yeah.
Like, Uhura is made chief linguistics because
Yeah.
the other guy was not very good at speaking
Bones
multiple languages.
literally just gets promoted because
Because
he was the
someone
guy. He
dies.
was the guy on the phone.
Yes, because he was the guy on the phone. Scotty, just because he can push the ship.
Yeah,
Sulu, because the other guy didn't feel so well that day. So it is, I don't mind because I get it. They need all the crew in their head positions. And after the event, it makes sense that they all be promoted. So it's explained that, the Earth thanks them. Kirk's kind of trial. You go back to trial and it's explained that, all charges, not against you. You're a great captain. And they just make him captain at the
yeah, he gets
Enterprise.
commended.
A guy goes from being an ensign, well, not even an ensign because he's still an academy,
Yeah,
to first officer, which is usually lieutenant commander, to captain. In this matter of 2 days.
yeah, it's a very short time to go for it up the ladder.
Maybe I think that is
He did it
The
a lot.
ultimate-
He did it a lot quicker than he
His
said he
thought,
would, because it was going to be
yes.
3 years, wasn't it?
no, it was maybe 8 years he was going to get his own ship. That's what Pike said. 8 years. 3 years in the academy, 8 years until you get your own ship.
Yeah,
And he did it. He did it in 3 years. So maybe I think that's the ultimate question: is this Kirk smarter than old Kirk? Who would win, old Kirk or new Kirk? And I think that's something the comment section is going to have to determine who would actually win.
yeah, because I feel like we'd be here forever if we started going on about that, and we'd go wildly off topic.
So overall, what did you think of the film? I actually do enjoy it. I know there's a lot of issues, but I'm going to go into the very good bit now because it's like a sandwich. We started off with good, middle, bad. But the very good bit is music is excellent. Enterprising Young Man is
It
the
has
theme.
a spot-on soundtrack, yeah.
Yes. Enterprising Young Man is probably one of the best sci-fi themes I've ever heard compared to related to the motion picture. Star Trek's always had good music and that's what it's always been known for.
Yeah, because it has the full orchestra setup, doesn't it, really?
And visually stunning. I do like how they do keep some of the TOS colour, bright colour uniforms, bright colours. The lens flares weren't overdone. a lot of people complain about Lens flares. I think it was done tastefully in a very realistic way. Because obviously, he wants to make it seem like it's in space. You know, you want lens flares, kind of like a lot of lenses.
I didn't
and
really
stuff.
notice them that much outside of when like the title first appears and it's got the
I noticed
massive
him
lens
when he
flare
kicks in the
around.
bar. There's a big lens
Yeah.
flare in the screen. I'm like, oh, come on, in a bar.
Yeah.
I guess neon in the bar.
I feel like it's probably something I'll probably catch a lot more when I rewatch it.
Yeah, I've rewatched it many times. You do
Yeah.
notice these things. So, what did you think, Ben? What was your overall thoughts? Did you what would you kind of say? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like it?
I really liked it. I mean, it still feels like quite like the change from the original series, which understandably so. But I did really enjoy it, and honestly, I do look forward to seeing the next two after watching that one.
I've already seen the next two. The second one is Into Darkness, which isn't as good, but it's still an okay film. And Star Trek Beyond is my favourite because it really relates to a TOS. My opinion is I still love the film. I've watched it many times, and I do like the film. Obviously, enough to actually get the 4K Blu-ray copy of it. And overall, I really like the film. It got me into Star Trek, and it's been a big part of my kind of early going into adulthood now. I'm actually in adulthood, obviously, but it's making me find myself easier Star Trekkers. I feel like Star Trek really impact me as a person, and it was all thanks to 2 years ago I saw this film, and it blew my mind. You know, Star Trek blew my mind, and I'm here now. I've watched pretty much every series, every film. I know everything over Star Trek related,
Yeah.
and it's thanks to this film. So this film does hold a special place. And yes, it is an action film. If you're going to go into watching the film, personally, I give it a thumbs up, 5 out, maybe a 3.5 out of 5,
Yeah.
which isn't a bad score. That's like an IGN 7, which isn't bad. You know, everyone always thinks an IGN is
it's a good score, but like
It's a good score.
you can't go into it expecting the motion
It's
picture.
not going to
basically.
be challenging you. It's an action film, but you're going to sit back, turn your brain off.
It's a blockbuster. It's
It is a
very much a
blockbuster.
blockbuster.
But I do recommend the film. If you want to watch it, give it a watch. Ben was new to the film, and he really enjoyed it. So, any closing thoughts? Are you looking forward to watching the next two?
I am. I'm very much looking forward to watching them now.
So the next discussion review is going to be about Into Darkness, which should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be quite interesting.
It's more of a. It takes things from this film and elevates them, but I think it elevates all the things we've had issues with. And it has Benedict Cumberbatch, so that's going to be very fascinating.
I have heard that the next one is kind of the grey zone of the series, where it's not the
yes.
best.
It is a major grey zone.
I'll be curious to watch then, see how I react.
It is, yeah. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Drop.